Welcome to episode 91 of the Critical Twits podcast, where we interview 12 other tabletop gaming podcasts. Hello and welcome back. I'm Brian. Welcome to episode 91 of the Critical Twits, a tabletop and video gaming podcast from the barren wastelands of the Fens. We were lucky enough to be invited to the second ever podcast zone at this year's Dragonmeet convention in London. And while we were there, we interviewed no fewer than 12 other gaming podcasts. We had a great time and would like to extend a great big thank you to the Rolistes for organising and running the day and inviting us to join in. So, we have interviews with these podcasts coming up. Pretending with Dice, How We Roll, Dem Drunk Blokes Do D&D, Chimpions, The Lucky Die, Penance Podcast, Demipia, Baylor's Blades, Crudely Drawn Swords, The Rolistes, The Formal Gamer, Wizard on the Wynd, and The Coriolis Effect. Now, before we start, I must caution you that the sound quality for some of the interviews is not the best, as they were recorded on the convention floor and there is a little bit of background noise going on. Also, if you're not a fan of naughty words, you may not enjoy the veritable buffet of swearing and curse words that follows. Finally, if you're new to the Critical Twits and enjoy this episode, please consider tracking us down on YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, or your favourite podcast supplier, and subscribing for more tabletop and video game discussion and the occasional one-shot actual play. Thank you very much, and on to the interviews. Cool, so we're here at Dragonmeet with the first podcast to accept our invitation to come and have a chat with you. You're the first, and therefore obviously the best.
Set the tone for everyone to follow.
So who are you and what is your podcast about?
I'm AJ.
I am Jason.
And we're from Pretending with Dice. We're basically an actual play podcast that we make our way through a variety of different systems. Kind of short story arcs and that, and we're kind of rotating our players out as we change system and that, and just generally trying to have a good time.
What is it that got you guys into podcasting then? Why did you decide that your games needed to be broadcast to the world?
Well, I've actually, prior to this, I hosted a kind of general kind of nerd chat podcast for about 5 years with another mate of mine. He moved away, so it became a bit trickier to do it because the general vibe it wouldn't have worked over Skype that much. I was playing tabletop RPGs anyway, and I thought, okay, well, this is the next step. Let's combine the two things. But Jason and our other two players hadn't really done this kind of game before we did the podcast, so it was kind of a little bit of a different sort of thing for you guys, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were all completely new to it at the beginning of the podcast, which was part of it.
But they had podcasted before, so that was kind of the thinking of like, okay, well, we're going to start off with some people I know are comfortable on mics, and I know I get on with, and we can have a laugh with, and I knew we'd have a fun time, even if they hadn't played before. And we've been going about 6 months now, and
and it's getting progressively weirder.
Yeah, it's getting strange. that's the way of D&D and that.
Yeah, what's the best place for people to jump into your podcast then? Do they start with episode 1, or is there a particular episode arc you think is really good and really shows you guys off?
I quite like our first arc because it's kind of a compact sort of 6 episodes, sort of episodes 1 to 6. But the way we're doing it with just sort of short story arcs is that really the idea is that there's, you're going to have a jumping on point every 6 to 10 episodes anyway. So it really depends kind of what thing you're in, what kind of thing you're into. I say it's D&D for the first arc. We then do a 4-arc Star Trek Adventures thing with our friends from the Spotlight podcast came over from Brighton. We recorded the whole thing in one day, and it was a bit manic and that, but we got 4 episodes out of it. So it kind of depends what you're into. We're back to doing D&D at the moment, and later on in the year we're going to be doing a Star Wars campaign. So it's really kind of up to the listener sort of thing, but I do like our first story arc though.
The first story arc's a lot of fun.
Yeah, because we get to know the characters. I think the plan is that we're going to be going back to the same D&D group kind of throughout to kind of check in with those characters and that once in a while, so it's a good, as always, the start is a good starting point. But we're only about 14-15 episodes in at this point, so there's not a huge backlog to slog through so far. But yeah,
if there's people out there who are interested in maybe doing their own bit of podcasting, what one tip would you give them?
It's tough.
Get used to listening to yourself talk.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to. Don't be afraid to edit. if you're like me, you're going to be saying and a lot.
I will cut those bits out. It's fun.
That's going to be a really awkward sentence then. If you're like me, you're going to and a lot. But yeah. No, it's just like just get just go for it. Like and everything. It's the more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to get on microphones and that. Like thinking back to when me and my other mates started, like just general nerd talk podcasts. Like I listen back to those occasionally, and like we're both terrible, and there's a lot of kind of sort of stopping and starting and that. And I feel like just the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. So it might not sound great at the beginning. It might all be a little bit awkward and weird, but like the more you do it, the more comfortable it's gonna get. So don't be sort of disheartened with if things aren't quite,
Just keep persevering and getting used to it, and listening back and learning from your mistakes.
Oh yeah, totally.
And finally, then, last question: if your podcast was a sandwich, what sandwich would it be?
It's a bog roll sandwich, which is a joke.
It's a
about
weird
the cost.
Yeah, bog roll sandwich.
It's a bog roll and pocket pork sandwich, and if you want to know what that is, then you should listen to the podcast.
Brilliant. Then go over. We'll pop a link below, and you can go and check that out.
Yeah. Cheers, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Cool.
We're here again at Dragonmeet. We've got yet another podcaster to talk to. If you could introduce yourself and your podcast, please.
Hi, I'm Joe. I'm the DM and writer for How We Roll podcast. We play D&D, Curse of Strahd, and we do a lot of Call of Cthulhu stuff with the writers and producers of Call of Cthulhu.
Excellent. So what is it that got you into podcasting? Why did you decide, I'm such a good DM, people need to hear my work?
I think probably the same as everyone. We were sat around playing games and we were like, our games are pretty good, maybe people would listen to us. And then we had a few pints and we were like, our games are fantastic. Everyone wants to listen to us. And it was a few years ago, and I think the quality of actual plays has really improved over the last 3 years. So back then, all you really needed was a microphone. So we did it, and we got a few listeners and carried on going and got more listeners, and 3 years later we're still playing.
Yeah, so if someone wants to listen to your podcast, what can we expect? What kind of feel, what kind of mood do you try to build?
Okay, so we're fully produced. So we've got sound effects, we've got music, we have very good sound. I think our earlier stuff was rougher, I've cleaned it up a bit, but our more recent stuff has really good sound. We're lucky to have a few voice actors play with us as well, which is amazing. We're currently playing through the Call of Cthulhu scenario Blackwater Creek with the writer, who's our DM for that one, which is amazing. So we tend to play horror. We tend to play quite fast and loose with the rules, like much more about having fun and telling a story. I think like about at least 2/3 of the podcast are Irish, so it tends to be very fun and very easy to listen to from their side. Again, lots of people do what we do, but definitely, come check us out.
Yeah, what's the best place for someone to dive in? Do you have like a favourite adventure art you think would really show you off at your best, or should they go right back to the beginning?
I'd say you definitely can go back to the beginning. Like all of our stuff is up on iTunes and anywhere you want to listen to it. But if you like D&D, we've got a custom Curse of Strahd playthrough, and that's pretty recent. Sounds really good on that. And if you're into Call of Cthulhu, just look for a scenario where maybe one that you want to play, and you can listen to us play it first. It helps you as a keeper, and even as a player, it would do spoilers. So really, any of the Call of Cthulhu scenarios that take your fancy.
Excellent. If there's people out there who are wanting to be podcasters themselves, what one tip would you give them to get them started?
One tip. Probably got a few, but I think the big one is maybe find your niche. Like, if you want to play D&D, like, all power to you, but you'd be going to be a very small fish in a very, very large pond. I think we got success because at the time there were not that many Call of Cthulhu scenarios out there, podcasts out there, and there were even fewer that actually produced it. So having good sound, music, sound effects, playing Call of Cthulhu, like there was probably only maybe 2 other podcasts doing anything like that. So finding a niche is really important. Again, unless you're just doing it for fun, but if you want to get an audience, be unique, and be unique in a way that people want to listen to.
Excellent. So as a final question then, as a horror podcast, Twilight vampires or Stoker vampires? Please show you're working.
Like I did try and watch Twilight. I think we made it like 20 minutes in. It's actually my wife that went, "This is shit, isn't it?" And I was like, well, so I've never read or watched Twilight. So Stoker. I mean, we're doing Curse of Strahd, and I've used a lot of Stoker as an influence in writing my version of it, I guess. So definitely Stoker vampires.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Cheers. Brilliant. And on that musical note, we're here at Dragonmeet with Dem Drunk Blokes Do D&D.
Yes.
Thank you very much for coming on to the Critical Twits.
Thank you very much for coming on to us. Not sexually, of course.
So if you could just introduce yourself so people know who you are and tell us a little bit about your podcast, that'd be great.
I'm Chaz, otherwise known as DDB Voice Guy. This is
Ho Jipatone.
Ho Jipitone.
That's a pseudonym for my name on the show.
Yes, because he's not allowed to reveal his real name because otherwise he will be molested. Politically, not politically molested. Let's be very clear.
Kind of molestation.
Yeah,
So we get drunk and we play D&D, and we immerse ourselves in different characters and things and beings and all that.
I don't know what time it is right now, but I think it's the afternoon, and we've been drinking since the morning. So we're fulfilling our properties as humans.
Is this fairly
Being
typical
drunk.
for you? To be drinking so much?
Yes,
Well,
absolutely.
Well, yeah, while we're presenting ourselves, we have to.
Dem Drunk
Otherwise
Blokes.
it wouldn't be fair, would it? It wouldn't be honest. If we're Dem Drunk Blokes, we've got to be drinking when we're presenting ourselves.
so where did the idea for this podcast come from? Were you just getting drunk
Yes,
and playing
yeah,
D&D
yes, that's exactly
recreationally?
what it
Play for
is.
like
That
8
is
hours
exactly what it is.
on a Saturday afternoon, and we were doing like a gaming podcast already.
Yeah, so we like sort of start at 12 in the afternoon, and then we finish at like 12 in the afternoon. The next day. But it's been some of that is coherent within there
And
somewhere.
We chop it all down to 45
And,
minutes.
and
an hour.
somebody takes notes along the lines a little bit, but we also record it, so hours and hours and hours and hours of editing, which is great.
And we're all
Is that-
musicians, and we have a really good technical production guy. He's missing right now. He's drunk somewhere.
Yeah,
but,
we like play a bit of music and do the theme tunes and some rubbish like that.
Go on,
too.
sing us the theme tune, go on.
Oh no, we just make them. We make them up as we go. So
Can you make a song for the Critical Twits?
Well, I don't know.
the critical twins.
Yes, that's us.
Yes, we can.
Excellent.
I was gonna start something. I failed at it.
All right, go on,
Guys,
start.
it's like an alcohol level that like it comes and it quickly goes.
You're putting us on the spot. But
That's all right, that's fine.
here's a bit of a gist. Here's a lyrical twist. It's the critical twits. We're the critical twits. Yeah.
We're gonna be critical. We're gonna be analytic. We're gonna be critical.
Critical
Gonna
twits.
criticize.
Thanks for all round of
All right,
applause. Thank you very much. We'll use that in every episode.
Please do.
So if someone wants to listen to your podcast, they have to go all the way back to Series 1, Episode 1, or can they jump in at somewhere else?
Well, because we've had so many different adventures, and we've like sort of consolidated a lot of it and skipped a lot of it. I would say
Just jump in.
it's a bit of a mishmash. So I would say either the more recent ones or just dive in and see what we've got.
So if other people out there are thinking of getting drunk and podcasting
Yes.
simultaneously,
Yeah.
what one tip would you give them?
Oh damn, that's really what one tip? Pace yourselves. Yes, pace yourselves.
That's a good drinking tip in
Right.
general.
Well, it
It's
also
really
is
easy to
very
get a lot
effective.
of audio, and you don't really realize how many beats there are between like your takes. You know what I mean? Like
There's a
the
lot of
amount
editing
of chopping
involved,
down
right?
that we do. is
Editing seems to be
ridiculous.
coming up a lot.
It is
actually.
tedious, man. It's tedious.
I mean, like when you get drunk, the more drunk you get, the more editing there is, and the more people are speaking over the top of each other, and the less coherent sentences are being formed, and you kind of have to just go and slice it all up.
Have you ever lost an episode to the drink? Had anything that's just been
Yeah,
completely-
many. Like at least the ends of it, and we kind of have to like. We'll chop it up as much as we can until we get to a point, and then we sort of just have to recap because it's gone. Everyone has gone.
So our final question then, just a light one to end us with. Do you think that anyone is born inherently evil, or do you think that evil is only created by someone's environment?
The latter.
Okay.
I did read The Lucifer Effect by Philip Zimbardo, which is
that's a great book.
yeah. So I'm going with the latter. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, so basically like
The latter. What are you
like-
trying to say here? The
so
first one or the second one?
It's pretty much talking about how situation dictates how you behave. Right? It's not saying that you're completely without power in a situation, but for the most part, if you're in a situation, it's going to influence your behaviour. And depending on what kind of person you are, most of the time, like 97% of the time, you're going to be really influenced by whatever situation you're put in.
Excellent.
So yeah, I think that.
Well, we all learned something. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
That was a great
Really
last
appreciate
question.
it. Thank you very much.
As an addendum to our Dem Drunk Blokes interview,
Sure, go on.
what's your name, sir?
My name's Luke.
Luke, we're here with Luke, who is a friend and fan of Dem Drunk Blokes.
Loosely affiliated with.
Loosely affiliated with. Have you been on the podcast?
I have not been on the podcast, no. I've played with him a few times. We're old school friends, so I've played with him a few times, but I've never been recording. No. Well, we did record a game, but it's just not been aired.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they took a massive break over the past about 5-6 months due to life situations getting in the way.
Cirrhosis of the liver, possibly?
Something like that,
Yeah.
maybe. They come back, they rebrand themselves as Dem Drunk Blokes Do D&D, and they're planning on doing some more D&D orientated podcasts because they've basically got 40 or 50 hours worth of games to edit, and they want to get that out. So maybe I might make an appearance because I am on some of it, but whether I will or not, if I make the cut or end up on the floor, who knows.
Yeah. What's it like role-playing with people who seem to be... I mean, I've only met them once, but it was quite early in the day and they were very drunk.
Yeah.
What's
and
it like?
Pretty much gone downhill from there.
Yeah.
Uphill, depending on bad press.
I mean, they've wandered off and I'm actually slightly worried for them.
They're recording at the moment with former gamers.
Oh.
So they're doing PR and stuff like that. They're all around.
Yeah.
They've done really well today, because in fact they're relatively unknown. They've PR'd themselves really well today, and the amount of people that have stopped, and no disrespect to anybody else here, yourselves included, but I think I've been loitering around all day and I've probably seen more people chatting to them because they're just giants. They are giants. I mean, I'm 6'4", Pumbaa's about 6'4", 6'5", Shogun Pumbaa, Matt's like 6'2", they're just big, massive personalities, and they're great, they're good fun. I think what they bring to the D&D, certainly podcast kind of genre that's not elsewhere, is the fact that they don't take themselves too seriously. I've not listened to yours, so I don't know how seriously you guys take yourselves, but some people do. Some people are very serious. These are the rules, let's play. These guys, they're just a bunch of lads getting drunk and talking rubbish, and I think a lot of people can actually relate with that. I think more and ready.
Cool. Is there a favourite episode or arc that you recommend that people start with? Or
with them,
away?
It depends what you're after. So they've only got maybe 15, 20 podcasts out at the moment, hopefully more to come. And they start off and they're mostly doing kind of like talking rubbish, reviewing films that are out, games they've played, stuff like that. And their first branch into D&D they did a little mini series, and it's about 5-6 episodes long, and that's hilarious because they recorded it I think after they'd already been drinking for some time, played it on the spur, 3 of them having a laugh, and that for me, because I used to play D&D, we started playing together when we were about 15, and then we had to a break, and they started this up recently, and that just reminds me of hanging out with them when I was 15, 17, playing, rolling dice, and that is just, they don't take themselves seriously, and it's just hilarious. Like, don't be they call it a rules lawyer. Don't be a rules lawyer. If you're going to listen to them, just take them a pinch of salt and just enjoy the fact that they're just comedians.
Excellent. Thank you very much for explaining what they're about, because that did not happen when we interviewed
I
them.
bet it didn't. They probably invite you to the pub or something, probably.
No, we weren't cool enough.
No.
Oh, we'll end there. Just be sad. Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Cool. So we're here at Dragonmeet with Pumbaa from Dem Drunk Blokes.
Hello. What's my name?
Yeah, we've already talked a little bit to some of Dem Drunk Blokes.
Yeah, I'm really sorry
But
about that. I can't do anything about them.
You've been described as the brains behind the operation. Was it your idea?
Yes, it was. It was indeed. I am the most functional alcoholic out of the lot of us.
Okay.
And one Black Friday sale, there was a Blue Yeti microphone on sale.
We've got one of them.
We got one of them. It's in the
two
box,
of them.
just down there. We got one of them, and it was from 150 quid down to 75 quid. So I left that. I bought it. I was like, what do I do with it? Let's do something. So I got my best friend, I don't know if you spoke to Matt yet, the other fucking lump. Yeah, like the really retarded lump.
Okay.
If you ain't spoken to him.
It's nice that you're his friend then.
Oh no, he's my best friend. I dragged him up. I brought him up proper. So we recorded it. Our first episode. You can only find it on Spreaker now because it's not allowed on iTunes. So if you go on Spreaker, Dem Drunk Blokes, it's the only episode that's on there, and it took nearly 5.5 hours to record.
Yep.
And we drank 2 bottles of vodka and 2 bottles of limoncello. By the end of it, Matt was literally laying on the table going, I can't talk anymore. And I edited edited that down to about a 44-minute episode, and that was our first ever attempt at podcasting. Then we carried on doing that rubbish, and then realised that more people were interested in when we D&D.
Okay.
So the next few, which you can find on iTunes, Podbean, everything else, there's a 5-episode run of the very first D&D mini adventures. It's all filmed in one night and released in one night.
Okay.
So there's no editing, there's no nothing, and it's just 3 of us sitting there playing D&D, getting more and more and more drunk. It's vile, it's disgusting, it's hilarious. You really need to go and listen to it to understand what happened. And we found out that made more listeners, more people liked the D&D stuff. So we've now rebranded, and we're going to be Dem Drunk Blokes do D&D from now on.
Excellent. What tip would you give to someone who's thinking of launching their own podcast?
Just go for it. Like the biggest problem I had is I listened to a lot. I mean, I lived in Japan for nearly 4 years, and I listened to a lot of English podcasts just to give me like to kill like the homesickness. So listening to English people just chat about random stuff that I liked was the way forward, and I never thought I'd be good enough to do it. So my absolute advice is, as soon as you get the possibility, the chance to do it, is just go for it. Literally just jump in, see what happens. And as a friend of mine said earlier, even if you're just chatting into the void, while you find your feet, it doesn't matter if no one's listening, because by the time someone actually starts listening, you'll be better at it. So just go for it.
Excellent. So just finish, as a certified drunk bloke, you must know a lot about drink. What's your favourite cocktail recipe? And can you share it with our listeners?
Okay, so Billy Connolly actually mentioned this to me, and I've been all over the world and asked many cocktail or mixologists to make this. It's called a zombie.
Okay.
And if you actually drink it, it's actually 6 different types of rum topped up with champagne. But when you drink it, it tastes like fruit juice. And normally, if they're selling it, especially in England, you can only have 1 per person.
Okay.
First time I ever found it in England, I drank 6 of them and proceeded to try and get home. I don't remember what happened after that.
Have you still not got home?
I don't know. Where is home?
You're just wandering around randomly.
Yeah, that is the one to go for if you're really brave, but it is very, very strong.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers. We're here at Dragonmeet again with Mark from the Chimpions podcast. Hi, Mark.
Hiya.
Thank you very much for coming on the Critical Twits.
My pleasure.
Can you explain for our listeners what Chimpions is?
Yeah, so Chimpions is an actual play podcast. We do the superhero genre rather than the typical D&D type thing. Use the hero system rules, which are quite an old rule set, and a lot of people haven't heard of them. So, and it's all D6 based, so really easy for dice as well. But actually, we run over Roll20 as well, which makes life a little bit easier recording-wise and things like that.
Do you video as well as sort of record? I know a lot of people do with sort of Roll20. Yeah. So, are you the leader? Are you their king? Or
yeah,
they don't have kings in superheroes. What do they have? Yeah. They have like the person who's in charge of the team.
I'm the GM. Yeah. So
okay.
Players.
So was it your idea?
Yeah, because we were already playing, and we were playing over Roll20, and I was listening to a few podcasts, and I thought, give it a whirl. How hard can it be? You just record, you put it up there. Sorry, I don't know the company, your level of podcast. Am I right to swear? I don't know how fucking much work it was going to be. But it's been enjoyable for the main part, but it has its moments.
Yeah, so if people wanted to dive into your podcast, they have to go all the way back to the beginning to follow the story, or can they jump in at a closer point?
Yeah, we went into this pretty blind, and so we've just turned our game into a podcast rather than making a podcast, if you see what I mean. So it'd probably be best to start at the beginning. We're realising it's probably unwise to not try and season it so people could jump in later on, but I think we might address that going forward.
So, if people want to podcast, people think, I can do this. What one tip would you give them? Don't. That's it. That's that question.
No, I would say maybe join Twitter, get some of the other actual play podcasts or role play podcasts out there. It's a pretty good community, as I'm sure you know. Just ask questions, what challenges there's going to be, what equipment you need. I mean, we run on a very tight budget, really. We're not spending a lot of money, and how much time to expect to burn, because I think it takes me about, because we're not strict about the way we play and everything, it takes me about 20 hours an episode, I think, to edit it.
Really?
So, yeah.
What are you doing in that 20 hours?
Mostly cleaning the audio, to be fair.
Right, okay.
Because we're on a mishmash of different... I've got a pretty decent mic, one of the players has, the other two guys are on headsets, there's a lot of background noise coming in, and so, yeah.
Is it worth it?
Sometimes I do wonder. Dragonmeet was my way of meeting some of the other podcasters and maybe trying to reinvigorate myself a little bit, because I've been toying with do we just drop to once a month, but no, I'm feeling the buzz again, if you like. Yeah, I'd say it's worth it, yeah.
Excellent. Final question then.
Yep.
Where do you stand on unicorns and unicorn-based paraphernalia?
I usually stand on their heads.
Okay. But they're pointy. That sounds dangerous.
Well, 1 foot on the horn, 1 foot on the back of the neck. That usually does the trick. Paraphernalia, I suppose it's all right. The hide makes a really nice fireplace rug, I find.
Excellent. So everyone out there, make sure you turn your unicorns into handy rugs.
Yeah, and what you can do with the horn, that's more adult, but you can go into that later.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
Hello again, we're back at Dragonmeet with Volonda from the Lucky Die. Thank you very much for coming on the Critical Twits.
You're most welcome.
What is the Lucky Die?
The Lucky Die is an actual play 5e D&D podcast, which I DM, and all my players are in America. So it's very dark, and it's post-apocalyptic. It's very fun.
Excellent. You have my favourite name of all the podcasts here today, because it's a pun.
It is a pun. It was something we came up with very late night when we were trying to decide what the hell to call ourselves, and someone just went, we should just call ourselves the Lucky Die. I'm like, that works, because they didn't know what world I was about to set it in. I was like, this works at so many levels you don't understand.
Brilliant. So you're an actual play podcast. How long have you been going, and where's a good place for new people to jump in?
We've just released episode 6.
Okay.
In the new year, we are going weekly, so it'll be then. Pretty much you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, any sort of podcatcher, you'll probably find us there.
Excellent. And what kind of experience will people get? What's different about your game?
I think it's happening during an apocalypse.
Okay.
And it is a big scale and quite dark. At the end of episode 2, it leaves you with a question mark of what the hell is happening now. And it's probably my favourite cliffhanger I've ever written into anything ever. But yeah, it's pretty much during the apocalypse. It is world level events. It's very, very cool.
Excellent. You've only just sort of started, really, if you're only on episode 6. What tip would you give to anyone who's thinking of starting their own podcast?
Make sure you have a good group. And write, if you're DMing it or if you're playing it, remember that you are playing a game and it is you guys playing a game. So write and play as if it's just you guys, because you will find your own voice. Trying to copy other people, you're never going to hit them. So be your own voice and do your own thing, because people will be attracted to that. And if you guys muck about and have fun, people love laughter. So just roll with it.
Excellent.
Unintended.
Finally then, a very serious question. As a D&D podcast, do you prefer hobbits, halflings or kender?
Hobbits.
Why? You have to show you're working to get full marks.
Oh, I have to show full marks. Oh, I'm getting scored. Holy crap, I might have changed my answer. No, hobbits, they have hairy feet. They wander around without shoes, so you don't have to worry about what shoes you're wearing, and you don't have to buy socks, so you're infinitely cheaper to take on an adventure.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thanks.
We are here at Dragonmeet with the Penance Podcast. Say hello.
Hey, I am Ben, and I play Baylor Pysel, man of many titles.
And hi, I'm Rebecca. I play Andrewdina Hartford, human werewolf.
Cool, so just give us your 30 seconds. What is the Penance Podcast and why should people listen to it?
Penance is a very story-driven, improvised podcast. We've stripped away most of the more complicated, bogged-down mechanics so you can get right into the RP. You don't have to worry too much about just getting bogged down, and you can really roll with the characters. And that's what we're all about.
And Sky Ponies.
And Sky Pony.
Cool, excellent. So what was it that made you get involved in podcasting? What was the drive to say, our roleplay sessions are so good, people need to hear them?
Well, I am not an original member. I came in a bit later, and at the time we hadn't actually considered putting it out as a podcast. Originally, it was a WoW guild that I am not even part of, was recording it for other people in the guild. We must have recorded about 20 odd or so before we decided to put them in, and I was against it first, but I don't know, it's been fun. So, and I got invited to a convention, so that works. That's pretty cool.
Made you get involved?
I got involved in season 3 even later than this one.
Oh, okay.
You happen to come across the two people who haven't been here from the start, the only two.
Were you a fan first, or?
No, I was a friend of a friend who kind of got invited by kind of a string of events and just was invited one day, and I said okay, and then I appeared, and then I'm not leaving. That's essentially me in a nutshell. I'm not leaving. This is fun. I enjoy this.
So is it the kind of podcast where people need to go all the way back to series 1, episode 1 to know what's going on, or is there a good place for them to sort of jump in now? Where do you think they should start?
Each season is pretty good to jump in, and we've actually just started season 4. It's just gone live on Sunday. Episodes go up every Sunday, weekly, and if you want to start, the new one is right at the start of season 4.
There is an introduction episode as well, which goes through all the characters and the general kind of riff-raff up until season 3, which is a good way to just kind of catch up and get to know all the main cast as well, so that's also there.
Excellent. So if people are interested in podcasting, what one tip would you give them to help them get started?
Good microphones.
A decent audio setup helps. I would say, honestly, as corny as it sounds, we've found that the podcasting community is actually a very, very friendly, very helpful and welcoming community. So if there's something you are not familiar with, people will help you. Like, don't stress. It's very easy. It's not hard to get into.
Excellent. So finally then, you're a roleplay podcast?
Yep.
What alignment would you be? Or are you?
Myself?
Yes, as an actual human being.
Myself or my character?
Yourself, you.
All my tests have come up true neutral. I am a druid.
Okay.
I stand with nature.
I am also probably neutral, but more because I am an optimistic nihilist. In the sense, I don't think anything really matters.
Fair enough. And on that cheerful note, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Have a lovely day.
Thank you. Hi, we're here at Dragonmeet with another podcast interview with Demipia, the Third Age.
Yeah.
Could you tell us who you are and a little bit about your podcast?
Yeah, so my name's Max. I'm the DM for Demipia. It's a actual play 5th edition D&D horror themed podcast. It's all about solving mysteries in this terrible, terrible world where people do terrible, terrible things to each other.
I'm Libby. I play a character called Erdai within the Demipia world. I spend most of the time kind of being horrified by things and trying to work out clues of what's happened, but not really knowing what's going on.
Yeah.
We just sort of muddle through.
So what kind of horrific arrogance made you think people need to hear my roleplay games?
I was bored one day and I was thinking I want to listen to some actual play horror stuff, and I tried looking for some and there wasn't any, and so I thought, well, I could do this, and then I started doing it, and now I'm a year and a half in and I'm thinking, why have I done this to myself? But there we go. I enjoy it. It's a labour of love. Also, I get to torture all of my players, which is great fun.
I don't know why I signed up for the torture. I guess maybe.
Have you been involved since the beginning, or have you been roped in later?
Yeah. We. I've been involved in Demipia before we started doing the podcast.
I run 2 sessions, and so it started off as one campaign, and then I started the second campaign because I apparently didn't have. I had too much free time, and that second one we made into a podcast. So Libby's playing in both.
Yeah. I just kind of decided that I wanted to be terrified more, so I signed up for that.
So if someone wants to get into your podcast, where's the best place to go? Do they go back to Series 1, Episode 1, or can they jump in a bit nearer now?
So we're on our second series at the moment. Our first series is called The Mind Children. Our second series is called What Lives in the Sludge. They are self-contained stories, but they do use the same characters.
Okay.
So the first series will give you a lot of character building, but you don't really need to know that because you very quickly get a handle on the characters and what's going on, and there's a swift introduction to what the world is like. And it's all sort of it builds on itself, but not so much that every part is essential to every other part. So you can start it. What Lives in the Sludge. The third episode came out today. But if you want to listen to the whole thing, then The Mind Children, Episode 1, is the best way to start, which you can find on Podbean, or we're also on Twitter and Facebook and iTunes and various other places.
If someone out there is going, actually, this podcasting thing sounds fun, what one tip would you give them? And you can each give a different tip, one as a player and one as a DM.
Don't look up.
Just go for it, get involved. Yeah, if you want to do it, just do it.
Yeah.
Excellent. And the last question then, if your podcast was a character from Friends, which character would it be and why?
It would be Phoebe's weird brother. After he broke up with his wife, before they got back together again when he was drinking too much.
Okay.
Excellent. That's great. Thank you very much.
That's all right.
Cheers. We're back at Dragonmeet with Baylor's Blades, talking to Thirsty and Volonda. Thanks very much for coming on the Critical Twits, and in your case, for the second time.
The second time, I feel privileged.
What is Baylor's Blades?
Baylor's Blades is a game about, essentially, it's a very strange, mismatched, elite military force. We actually had the entire cast here earlier.
Oh, we missed you.
Yeah, the Cognitive Merchant guys were here earlier as well. But it's a game of where we're given sort of very special missions to go out and sort of defeat enemies of the realm, be they racist werewolf hunters or
Shark bear shark.
Shark bear sharks, which was excellent.
It was a great episode.
That was the best thing. Yeah, we kind of ambushed the DM with that one.
Just craving this crack.
Yeah, he wasn't entirely sure what we were going to be fighting, and he kind of lost track of it halfway through, saying it was made of 3 creatures.
Yep.
So it was a shark, a bear, and a shark.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a very, very silly game, but
Yes.
very, very fun. He does the 3-line approach to prepping. So what he does is write down 3 lines and goes with that. It's very funny and kind of at times very surreal.
Yeah, there is that.
It's a bit out there.
Which system do you use for it?
It's Dungeons and Dragons 5e.
It's 5e.
Excellent. So, have you been playing Dungeons and Dragons long? Are you sort of old school? You remember Thaco and all that?
I remember
nonsense?
I remember playing with Thaco briefly.
It's not a good idea.
No, not really. I've been playing sort of role-playing games on and off for like 15 years. So it's a case of like, I remember playing, like, I've played AD&D. I've played with like seconds, like 3.5 a bit. I skipped 4th and went straight to 5th.
We skipped 4th, we never played 4th.
Yeah, we skipped 4 too.
In fact, the designer of 4th was here earlier, and I kind of felt like going, oh, I never did that.
Did you just not bother talking to him?
Yeah.
As if he was his own edition?
Yeah, there was that.
It was a whole list of like, he's designed this cool thing, and DA4 were like, should we be applauding that? Everyone jumped that one.
Yeah.
Everyone does silly things from time to time.
Yeah. Everyone has things they need to apologise for. So I guess 4 might be that, but I don't know.
So his was D&D Warcraft.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah.
How long has Baylor's Blades been going, and where's a good place for people to jump in?
August?
Yeah, I think it's only been going for 6-7 episodes.
Okay.
So a good place for people to jump in, obviously, at the moment would be the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, it will only take a few hours to get to current, so...
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and we haven't even completed our first mission.
That's true, yeah, we haven't, no.
Really.
But you can
I
pretty
think
much find
we're on a
us.
second.
We're about to start the second
Yeah.
second mission, but yeah, you can find us on Twitch every other Thursday on B&B Tavern, or you'll find all the back episodes on YouTube.
Yeah.
Again
So-
at B&B Tavern.
Most of the people we talk to are sort of podcasting, they're editing. You're playing on Twitch, so presumably live.
Yeah, that's live. Yeah.
What's that like? 'Cause we've never done live stuff. What
There
kind
are
of challenges
very
does it
certain
have?
words you can't say.
Yeah, there's one word which all agree we cannot say,
Yeah.
so we don't drop that bomb.
Yeah, it's
anymore.
got that one with a C and a T.
Yeah.
And I've said it
Cutter.
a few
Yeah,
times.
cutter, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, me and another member of our cast on one of our other shows has said it once.
The moment I'm told I'm not allowed to do something, in the back of my brain, it'll just be buzzing
Tell me
round.
about it. Yeah,
like
tell me about it.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, depending on which stream, because we do a couple of live streams for different games. It depends on whether you need to keep an eye on chat, really, because Twitch is a very audience participation type thing.
Yeah.
And keeping an eye on it, I mean, wouldn't necessarily affect your gameplay, but being involved in it is in the chat is a good thing to do. So that's probably the only real difference between that and doing a podcast. Apart from the fact that on a podcast, if you mess something up, you can stop and start again.
Yes.
Also, you can do that wonderful thing of you can edit out all the big pauses.
The ums and the ahs.
Where people are sitting there going, shit, what do I do? How do
hang
I
on,
add
I need
this
to find my
up?
spell.
Where's my calculator?
Like the 4 times I tried to do the intro to our interview, we could just get rid of, unless you keep it, Jamie.
Please keep it as a blooper. Beg you.
I've asked you this question already, but I'm going to ask you something slightly different.
Okay.
What's the one thing you think people shouldn't do if they are looking to get into podcasting or live streaming their game?
The one thing I think they shouldn't do is
Drop the C and T bombs.
Yep, drop the C bomb. And the other thing they probably shouldn't do is assume that they're rubbish, because people are actually quite good.
Yeah.
If anyone's been playing any roleplay game for a while, they're already performing.
Yeah.
They just didn't know it.
Just performing for an audience of your friends.
Yeah.
So just don't overthink it.
And don't talk over each other, for God's sake.
Yes.
Ah!
As I constantly kick my players.
Yeah, I get kicked.
Yes, our players are often kicked.
So, final question then. We're heading towards a dystopian future. I'd like you to imagine that dystopian future predicated upon the fact that you can only eat one type of cake for the rest of your life. What type of cake would you eat and why?
Carrot cake, because it means there are still
No
carrots.
fucking way! I was going to say carrot cake! Yeah, unanimous is going to be carrot cake. One, it has a vegetable in it, so, your mum will be happy and won't tell you off. 2, it has cream filling, which is just, just fucking the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. I would have gone with carrot cake as well for exactly the same reasons. So I feel like I've made friends here today.
Indeed you have.
Thank you very much.
That's all right.
Thank you. Excellent. So we're here with Tristan T. Wild, a famous bard. Tell us more about your bardic adventures and where they can be found.
For the last year or so, I've been travelling with what I fondly refer to as the Hawks now. Percival, Cleft, Banbury, Lutz and Enigma. We're trying to defeat Alumbria. She's kind of come out of she was captured by the Fae. We're trying to kind of fight against this. We've been questioning recently what we're doing, if what we're doing is right. I don't really know if this is relevant to anyone, I'll be honest. Now I say it, I see it. Seems a little weird.
It seems like a vital and important quest.
Well, this is the thing. We're currently on our way to Malahheim, which may or may not ruin the plot for people, but, you're either going to listen or you're not. We've got a lot going on. Banbury, get over here, lad. This is my good friend Banbury Lutz. We're going to IC for this interview because I'm boozed.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Banbury. He's a mage. He's very powerful.
My name's Magnus. I'm an auditor. I'm 34. This guy's deranged. So I'd like to apologise for him.
Fine. I was trying to be different from the rest.
So, as all good bards must have their adventures chronicled,
yep.
Where can people find the chronicles of your heroic adventures?
Toilets, toilet walls. Yep. There's quite a few of his jungle adventures written on there.
Adventures?
Near the M62, I think it's Junction 12. I think it's Cubicle 4. You've got quite a long description of Stu's adventure.
No real life names.
Tristan Wilde's adventure through the land of
Malahheim. I don't even know. I've had too much to drink. Basically, crudelydrawn.swords.com will take you to nothing. We don't have a website. But if you... that's it. Brilliant. Look at the voucher. There we go. Thanks, Lucy.
That's really good for the radio, that visual aid.
Okay, basically, facebook.com/crudelydrawn.swords or @crudestsword for Twitter, or soundcloud.com crudely-drawn-swords. Oh my God, / we've got to shorten that.
I was going to ask what got you into podcasting, but I can kind of guess.
I would say tabletop and LARPing. We've all LARPed together as friends for about the last Christ knows how many years. And Ben, the GM, said we should do a actual play podcast. Loads of people like them, to which I said, literally no one is going to listen to that. And
he
they
was
did.
reasonably
I was wrong.
Yeah.
No, I was wrong.
Yeah, basically we all used to be a LARP group, and we all used to get drunk in the field and make each other laugh, and then we got old and got jobs and didn't want to hang around in the field in the rain.
And camp. Fuck that. Excuse me. Sorry.
No, you can swear.
Screw that.
Shitty camp balls.
There we go.
Yeah, cunt. Of course.
Sometimes we have to have quite a strong edit on the episodes. The C-bomb gets taken out a fair few times.
That genuinely just slipped out. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So
I've never dropped a C-bomb in the podcast.
All right, let's move on from that.
Okay.
So if people want to catch up with your adventures, where's the best place for them to start? They have to go right back to the beginning, or can they jump in?
I'm going to stop him there, because Stu, every time since the first 3 episodes of season 1 were rubbish. But if you listen to any actual play, everyone has to find their feet. Everyone's got a bit of time to kind of get in the groove. Now, I actually reckon we don't have that bad for kind of first episode, but you do need to know who the characters are. Anyone that jumps in like too far in, you don't know who's talking. So I'd recommend starting at episode 1. However, we have got a season 2, which we started recording maybe 6 months, 9 months in, which has a bit of a preamble at the start. But once you've got past the preamble, it's quite good. So maybe there.
I would add that it's not a bad start, but we're finding our feet for season 1. So about episode 4 of season 1. So give us a while, and by episode 4 we've kind of, like he says, found our feet, and we start to get a bit more, you know, how you settle into the podcast, and because having a microphone in your face and being recorded is really awkward at first.
Also, Stu started wearing clothes, because
You're the one that never wears a top to the podcast. Seen your nipples about 4 times.
It's really hot in my room, in fairness. But
that doesn't make
shut
it
up,
better.
man.
Every group has one. I'm the one for my group.
Yeah, okay. I've said before. No, we're not in person. We're all recording in our own rooms. Yeah, a little bit of nakedness.
We've got our cameras on. You know this.
We aim up.
You don't.
Anyway, I don't know how a lot of other people do it. A lot of people seem to kind of meet in a room. They've all got that kind of camaraderie that's live.
That natural kind of animal sexual magnetism. No?
I mean, it wasn't...
Sorry, guys, carry on.
It wasn't what I was going for, no. But it's a slightly diluted experience, because obviously we're recording in our room separately. So it takes a little while for the drink to kick in. We've been chatting to some of the other guys. Their characters get drunk. We get incredibly drunk during the recording.
It's not always a good thing either. We just don't remember anything.
But it's nice, because when we listen back to the episodes, we genuinely don't know what's happened. But the problem with that is also we don't know what's happened.
Yeah, I laugh a lot when we re-listen back. I love the way he's kind of moving the mic back when I talk and forwards when Matt talks. So, I think it is pretty funny. I laugh a lot.
Lucy just said stand closer.
Lucy's, sorry. Hi, what are you doing?
Okay, you play a bard?
I do.
I assume you sing all your bardic songs?
I do.
So I would like you to sing us out, please, if you could.
My voice only works with guitar. Otherwise, I sound like this.
2 of the members of the podcast were in a band called... I mean, that was awful. So
Where was the round of applause?
There wasn't one.
Yeah!
Anyway, two of the members of the band...
You were meant to be bringing a guitar as well, weren't you?
I brought my imaginary guitar to wind you up.
I knew you were winding me up!
He texted me this morning. He's like, I forgot my guitar. I was like, don't worry, buddy, I've got mine. He was like, okay, brilliant. And I'm like, I don't play guitar, you idiot. Anyway,
You do, though!
2 of the members of the podcast were... in a band beforehand called The Patient Wild. We've got some of their music on the podcast. It is very good. You should check that out.
Search that. He's even doing it. Look, as soon as I lean in, he's panicking. He's putting that back.
Why don't we sing a song that like you can, you know?
No.
Heads,
shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes.
Heads, shoulders, knees. Come on, everybody!
Knees and toes, and eyes and ears and mouth and nose. Heads, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes. Anyway, The Patient Wild at soundcloud.com. Other way around. Long story short, The Patient Wild are an incredibly good folk rock band that we were a part of, not me and Mag. He can't sing for shit.
I heard they're dead now.
Whoa, get out on camera.
There's no camera, you absolute tit!
Yeah, this guy wants a podcast leaflet. Yeah, it's pretty, I mean, from this, it's pretty bad. This is the longest you've gone, and you're like, please.
It's fine, no.
Good luck with this, edit.
Yeah, enjoy. Yeah, we sing all our own songs. There's some raps in there. There's some acoustic guitar songs in there. There's some... That's it.
Cool.
That sentence.
Just rapping over acoustic guitar. It sounds amazing. Thank you very much for
Thank you very
coming on the
much.
Crudely
We're not going to let you go. Some interesting facts about Crudely Resource. 17 years ago, I once... No, we're done. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Crudely Resource! Woo!
We're here at Dragonmeet with Callum from the Rolistes, who is the mastermind behind the podcast zone that we were very, very fortunate enough to be invited along to. So we'll start with that and then we'll talk about your podcast specifically. What was your idea behind the podcast zone here at Dragonmeet?
Well, I'm not sure if you can really mastermind this kind of pandemonium that we saw today. But the idea, quite simply, the first year I attended Dragonmeet, no, it was the second year. Well, the first time I recorded at Dragonmeet, a few months later, when I released my episode, I realized other podcasts attended the same Dragonmeet as I did.
Yeah, we've been attending for 2 years now, ever since we started.
See, but we did not engage with each other. For many of us, because we are not that well known, we didn't even knew that we were attending and recording. And I thought it was a pity. And then the second thing is, after recording a couple of episodes with the team of Modifius, Chris Birch, who is organizing Dragonmeet, they offered me to have a little space for the podcast, for the Rolistes podcast. So, and I told them, well, actually, do you mind if I share it with other people? Because I thought it would be funnier to do things as a group, and I told them, just tell me whoever applied for a press pass and they will join the podcast zone. Well, it wasn't called even the podcast zone, and that included last year only 4 shows: the Rusty Quill, Wizard, the Wynd, Formal Gamer, which came up with this brilliant idea of recording all-day mini actual plays that he's gonna release, and and I don't remember which other shows were with us last year, but so we did that last year, and I asked to do it again this year. This time I took the liberty of contacting different podcasters, just trying to find as many as I could based in the UK, and I did not expect that many to actually answer the call.
So you sent out the bat signal. How many people have accepted the call? How many podcasts are here?
I think 27 accepted the call, but today we were something around 24 because some last minute cancellations. But 24 shows also, or something like that.
That's amazing. So 6 times as many as last year.
Yeah.
Well,
I hope we won't be 6 times as many next year.
Yeah, well done. So the release then, what's that about? What's going on there?
So the Rolistes is firstly a proudly London-based show.
Okay.
I'm very attached to London. Secondly, since maybe you can tell from the title and my accent, my first language is French. I was born in Belgium. And it started as something about the very niche community of French-speaking role players in London, of which there are quite a few. And very quickly it evolved into something. There's many shows about tabletop RPG, and they're very good, but they talk about the hobby. Sometimes they even talk about a specific game or play a specific game. and I thought what was missing was this depiction of the community, of the community as I know it, which is people who are really passionate about a number of things.
Yeah.
With tabletop RPG at the center, but they're passionate about a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the aim of the show, to be kind of all over the place, outward looking. Can be about food and tabletop RPG. The next one's going to be about music festivals in Belgium, because I interview my brother.
Okay, cool.
My last episode was a game designer coming over to my house, and I cooked him a nice dinner.
Yeah.
And we served him drinks, and we played a game with him. And you have all of that in the episode. You've got bits which are the game, then bits which are the interview, and then bits which are the game again. We've got special episode about French games which are not known, where you got again bits of the game and bits of interviews. Some episodes got us going out to the cinema, some episodes got music, so I try to keep things surprising between an episode and another, which makes me having a rather long explanation of what it is.
So it sounds like you're quite eclectic. Is there where do you think the best place for someone to jump into your podcast is? If they haven't listened to it before, is there a particular episode you're like, that was something I'm really proud of, or that's something that's really entertaining?
Well, my first advice would be start with rather recent episode rather than the very first. First reason is that there's no real chronology of storyline, so you can jump anywhere really, and there's no problem. And the most recent one, well, hopefully I improved with the quality of what I'm doing. Then I would say have a look at the topics of the episodes and see which one is catching your eye. We got one about Star Trek, we got some again about food. Can be about specific authors you're interested into. If you really want a number, I'm very proud of episode 20 about Nephilim, which is my favorite game.
Okay.
And today I had people who are telling me that they really enjoyed this one.
Excellent.
And the episode 24 with James Wallace, where we play Baron of Munchausen, it's also a rather good one, I think.
Excellent. If there's people out there who are listening and thinking of starting their own podcast, what one tip would you give them to get started?
Well, pick something you are really enjoying doing as a subject, because it's really cool to do, but it requires a lot of passion. It's very time consuming, and you go out there with your show. Advertise it, go towards the community, go use stuff like Podern Family, #PodernFamily on Twitter, who are podcasters not only of Tabletop RPG but loads of stuff. Tweet to other podcasters and engage with them, like we do here at the podcast zone, because they will be there to support you, help you have your show known. Your show won't magically become known. It can be excellent, but if you just put it on iTunes and don't post about it on Facebook, Twitter, etc., there's no way people will find it. It just won't happen.
Yeah, cool. So finally then, you do something that's quite eclectic. So I was wondering, if you could invite any historical figure to be on your show, who would you invite and what game would you play with them?
It's funny. I want to do a special episode about history, but it wouldn't be with a historic figure. It would be with one of my favorite podcasters called Dan Carlin, who's a big history podcaster. But if I was taking a historic figure,
it's a thinker, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'd really like to get Gandhi on, but play Risk with him.
Who?
Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi. Notorious pacifist. I want to see if he gets competitive.
Or a game of Monopoly with Marx or something like that.
Yeah, try to take over the world.
I think I recently listened to a couple episodes of that show by Dan Carlin called Hardcore History.
Yeah.
And it was about Julius Caesar.
Okay.
And Julius Caesar, if you're a little Belgian like me or French, you read about Asterix. It's a known figure.
Yeah.
But the guy was he would be a great play or something like Vampire the Masquerade.
Yeah.
It would be mental. One of the story about Julius Caesar is that when he was young, he got kidnapped by pirates in Mediterranean. And the pirates asked for ransom. And Julius Caesar told them, wait a minute, you're asking for how much for my ransom? That's not big enough. You should ask more. So he had the pirates ask for more money as his ransom. They got the ransom, and the first thing did when Julius Caesar got away, he rounded up a bunch of mercenaries and went after the pirates and killed them all. So I think this guy bring a role-playing game with the Senate and all the intrigues. I think he would be a crazy as good.
That'd be amazing. Yeah. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks for joining.
Hi, we're here with Danny from the Formal Gamer at Dragonmeet. Hello!
Hello, Brian, how are you?
I'm alright, actually. I really enjoyed playing games with you earlier.
Thank you very much. I was really pleased to have you guys on the show. It was lovely. You did 2016 with us and you come back this year. Excellent both times.
We'll come back every year that you're on.
Yeah, as I don't know how long I can do this for, but yeah. As long as I can get out of this place alive, I'll be back for another year.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, the Formal Gamer every year at Dragonmeet, well, last year and this year.
Yeah, last year and this year.
They play games with other podcasts. We were on last year, exploring meat together. That was fun. And this year we explored hiding under trains.
Yeah, you met the Pelican King.
We did meet. I loved the Pelican King.
The Pelican King, unfortunately, by the 9th episode, has been banished back to the dream realm where he lives, because obviously that's far too ridiculous to happen in an actual show. A pelican that has a gnome stuck up his bottom, well, that wouldn't be a real thing. So
we never met the gnome.
Oh yeah, there was a gnome up his bottom.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah,
that sounds good. So, based on that, then, what is the Formal Gamer?
Not always that. Normally more normal than that. I think we did something more weird for this. We're just an actual play podcast. We've been around 3 years, maybe a bit longer than 3 years. We play our sort of 5e and our own sort of homebrew world. Put a weekly episode. And we're just sort of like very much a story-based, not really a rules-based. We're not going to teach you how to play the game. It's a real narrative-based game that we do every week. And we've been around. We're doing it recorded in London, but it's all for British lads. We record in the same room, which I think is like a nice, important thing for us. So we get that sort of vibe of being together rather than, I think Skype makes it, we struggle with Skype.
Yeah, we've done a couple episodes that way, and they're always a little bit.
We did one, yeah. You've got the gaps because you're not quite sure when someone else is going to speak. You miss that body language, tone, and just those little subtle signals of body language that make it so much easier to when you're sort of in the zone with each other.
Or you talk too much and you all talk at once.
Yeah, that's an awful one. Yeah, you can't kick people.
Yeah. So, what kind of feel does your podcast have? What kind of draws people in?
I think humour seems to be a big part of it. People like that for it, and then we have like overarching story going through all of it. So I think there's a narrative and a humour side of it, but it's very character based. We make sure we swap DMs every season.
Excellent.
So everyone's involved in sort of the story going forward.
Yeah.
And that means you're not going to take the piss with the DM because you're the DM next.
Yeah.
So when you've got the power, you're going to be a complete bastard with it. So it's quite nice to sort of swap it around and go, right, I'm in charge. And then you bring in bits of other campaigns and go, oh, right, now he was an NPC here. I'm going to shift him across and here's a little cross-reference point and this has affected this. Oh, this dragon was here, but look what it's done. And, you know, you can sort of make these little links. For long-term listeners, I think they quite like that.
Excellent. So is it the kind of podcast where you need to go back to the first episode to get to understand what's going on, or can they jump in?
No, you can jump
recently?
in. There's a one episode which is called the jumping in episode. I think episode 100, which literally goes, this is where you should start. If you listen to episode 1, we have a bit at the start going, maybe don't start here. Don't start at episode 1. These are the ones that are like this. We've got some storylines that probably need a little bit more explaining, but like then we do standalone seasons to let people in. So season 3, season 6. Those sort of stand on their own, and we explain it very much at the start. Some people, because like people get in contact with Twitter and stuff like that, and some people are like, oh, where should I start? And I'm like, oh, here. And they're like, no, I need to start and complete everything. And I'm like, oh, God, okay, you lunatic. Some bloke in America listens to all 200 episodes in 3 weeks, which I think classifies as a mental health problem. And I think he should seek psychiatric help. I'm not sure that's normal.
Or you can sell him things.
Yeah, I know, but we don't sell it. We don't do a Patreon and we don't do adverts. We refuse to do that at the moment because we enjoy it more than our listeners.
You do it, something you do for fun.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, we got, you know, like weirdly, we're creeping over towards 2,000 listeners now, and that's great.
Nice.
Yeah, it's really nice, but we're still at that point where we want to. We're quite happy with what we're putting out, and I think doing a Patreon and stuff like that, I don't want to feel beholden to some sort of other idea. Like, this is what we're putting out sort of for us and our own benefits and stuff like that. So we're putting out what we want, and I think if we charge people for it, then there's a responsibility to do what someone else wants almost. Yeah. And so that's what I'm sort of worried about with it. And certainly with adverts, I'm like, yeah, but what if I say the C word on the podcast and I put an advert on it? Like, my mum would be furious. So let's keep adverts off it, because what if they get upset by something we say? Not that we're particularly crass, but, I just don't want it in my head while I'm recording. I just want to be free with my mates.
Yeah, so you've done 200 episodes.
Yeah.
If someone's out there thinking of starting their own podcast and getting involved, what one tip would you give them as the key thing that they need to remember or to do?
Find a USP. Especially if you're thinking of an RPG podcast, there are fucking thousands. And if you're just going to do, I'm another RPG podcast, which unfortunately we're not that different, and I think I'd probably find it's a bigger hook now, but we started when there weren't so many podcasts about, which is probably the only reason we've got any sort of listener base at all. I think you need to find something that's really unique, find something in the culture that's not happening. A Game of Thrones RPG podcast, a Fallout, the game RPG podcast, something where you're going to cross over fans from two different genres, because I don't think there's enough room for just RPG fans to find a podcast anymore, because actually half the people who are playing RPGs are also doing podcasts as well. Yeah. There's a huge number. So
Those
I think
are good ideas.
Yeah, well, someone steal them, please. So I haven't got time to do them.
Might be me.
Yeah, go for it. But I think there are all these IPs which you can use to sort of steal those fans. I know someone's doing a Disney one where each adventure takes place in a different Disney film. That's clever, because you're not just getting RPG fans, you're getting Disney fans. So I think looking at a completely unique IP and going, how am I going to get more people involved in this? Unless you're just happy to do like a podcast for and it'll have a very small listen base. But if you're looking to do something bigger, that would be my one tip for them. Find something unique.
Excellent. So as a final question then, who is your favourite My Little Pony and why?
Rainbow Dash, because my 3-year-old niece told me that's the best one.
Okay. Now, Jamie has some pretty strong views on Rainbow Dash, so can you please share those views, Jamie?
Thanks, Brian.
That's all right, mate.
No, I like Rainbow Dash, but she can be a bit of a dick sometimes, so
yes.
I'd go with Fluttershy.
My knowledge of Rainbow Dash is that she's on my niece's backpack, and I asked which one was her favourite, and she pointed to... Rainbow Dash is blue.
Yes.
That's my knowledge of Rainbow Dash. Oh, no, Fluttershy. Purple?
No, you might be thinking of Twilight Sparkle, who is both purple with black hair, thus making her a goth.
Right.
And she's a unicorn because she has a horn, and therefore is the best one.
Okay, interesting. I know very little about the My Little Ponies. I didn't watch it when it had that sort of resurgence. I sort of missed out on that. I didn't really understand why they got hate, though, from anyone. I never really understood why there was an issue, because I'd watched loads of stuff, and I like things.
So there's not going to be much chance of you doing a Tales of Equestria My Little Pony crossover episode on your podcast?
I mean... No, but only because we wouldn't know the source material very well. I think that's the issue. And we've not really crossed over with anything real-life IP yet. But that's not a bad idea for a podcast. And I imagine with the crossover fans, that's probably quite a smart idea. Someone steal that before Brian does it.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you. So we're here at Dragonmeet with the Wizard on the Wynd podcast. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you very much for coming on to the Critical Twits to tell us about your podcast.
Pleasure.
Who are you and what is your podcast about?
We are Wizard on the Wynd. It's predominantly a D&D actual play podcast at the moment, but it's focused very heavily on world building. So there are written story elements to it, histories, that sort of thing.
Yep, we have one series out so far called Holloways. There are mini episodes that, like you say, are world building, and we've just got the new series underway, which is Temple of Dawn.
So what are your roles on the podcast? What do each of you do?
I'm a player. Hey. I play Illuna in Holloways, which is a little tiny 6-inch pixie, which obviously I look like that today. I am dressed as Illuna, but I maximised myself today, full size almost. And in Temple of Dawn, I play Badger, who is another small character, a little gnome ranger.
I am the DM, and I write and run the games. We've just actually managed to get a new DM in, so I get to play a little bit later on. That'll be coming out. But yeah, I edit.
So what kind of madness possessed you to go, my D&D game is so amazing, everyone needs to hear it?
I didn't realise how much work would be involved.
That was the madness.
Oh, that's easy.
That's a common theme today. We have exactly the same thing.
Yeah, I had a little inkling. I always knew that I wanted to start kind of quite strong. I've got a background in film, so I knew a little bit about the recording process. And I had everyone on separate mics from the very beginning, this and the other, but oh my God, just, yeah, the amount of editing is insane. So, yeah, if I'd known, I probably wouldn't have done it.
It did start out as we were playing in a big group. There was like 10 players.
Yeah.
Plus, yeah, it was massive.
Yeah, we had 10 players, and we recorded them to basically so we knew what happened. We could do XP and all that kind of
We
stuff.
started out with a little task cam, and because he started writing up the episodes as a little blog, so he was listening back and typing it out, and then it kind of materialised from there, didn't it? And we realised 10 players and a podcast, not gonna happen. So we started doing smaller groups, different games.
How's your process kind of changed as you've sort of done the podcast, started getting into it, and realising quite how much work is involved?
Yeah, I think it's the things that change mostly are the stuff around the table. So in game, as people play for longer, you start to impose like mic discipline and all this sort of stuff. My approach to kind of editing and everything, the other side of things, hasn't really changed much. I've got better and I've got quicker.
Yeah.
But it's really kind of getting people to know how to stand up to their mics and how not to whack them and how not to eat crisps.
I'm the fiend. He's also become bolder in telling us what he expects from us as well now.
Yeah.
Like, we used to follow his lead, so we used to wait for his prompts. We used to follow whatever he was sort of saying and sort of go from there. Whereas now you've sort of honed in on some players.
Yeah, there's a lot more player, interactivity. Sort of thing, so
more sort
got
of
better at-
initiative and everything. Yeah.
So what kind of feel does your podcast have? What kind of experience will people get when they listen to you?
It's a heavily produced podcast. So to name drop, we've been named the British Godsfall. It's a really high kind of level of production, but it's knackering. It takes a lot to get it like that. So it is very immersive because it's all set. The whole point about the actual play is to build this one particular world.
Yeah.
So there's more than just the actual play. There are also stories that kind of create the histories and things like that. So you're being put into a very real place in a fantasy setting.
Excellent. So if people out there are thinking of getting into podcasting themselves, what one tip would you give them to get going? Maybe one as a DM stroke editor and one as a player.
So from the production side of things, you've got to want to do it. Because don't expect to like make a load of money from it, and don't expect it to be easy. You've got to be prepared to at least put 3 hours per episode minimum, and that's like dead minimum, I think. But yeah, so be prepared to work hard, and you've got to love it.
Yeah. From the player's perspective, I think you've got to be on the DM side. You've got to be on the person who's creating the podcast. You've got to be on board with them and give as much input and creativity, input, like, to be collaborative and be in one team, It's no good leaving it to just the one guy who's created the whole concept, because, they need everybody on board, and everyone needs to be... what's the word?
Well, it's about telling a story,
Yeah,
isn't it? I guess
yeah.
so. You've got to. It's a little bit more than just a game. I think when you start to make it a podcast.
Yeah.
I think try and get out of that, just playing your game and putting it on air. You are creating a story for people and kind of performing. So.
Trying to be entertaining at the same time.
Yeah. And go for it. Role play. Don't hold back. Because
Kill your character.
Yeah.
I'm good at that.
Yeah.
I died loads in our last campaign. It was
that's
great
good.
fun.
Yeah. We're actually rubbish at killing characters.
I know.
So
we keep surviving.
So I have a two-part final question. And the first part is, based on what you said earlier, what's the best crisps to eat with roleplay?
Ooh,
that's for you to
yeah,
answer.
that's definitely a me.
Bacon rashers.
Bacon
They're
rashers.
literally the favourite, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. I don't know. The kettle chips, salt and black pepper.
Well, actually, no. you get these little lentil,
Oh,
and they,
yes.
if you want the worst possible sound on the mic, they really crack and crunch.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, but they are so good.
In my early days of role playing, I'd go for bulk, so I'd get those cheap 99p giant bag of bacon rashers. But now I'm going more for the smaller bag of something sort of artisanal.
Putting in a tray of vol au vents.
Yeah, a bit of hummus to dip it in. It's good.
Deaden the noise a bit.
Yeah. And the final question then, as being a wizard on the Wynd, Dumbledore or Gandalf?
Oh God.
Well, that's
It's
tricky.
probably got to be Gandalf. I think. It's
Okay.
probably just my age.
You do need to
but-
show your working to get full marks. So why?
So, for me, I'm into history and lore and world building and so Dumbledore's pretty damn cool, but Gandalf's all about that, you know, working through history, research, you know, roving around the land, learning things. It's got to be that.
Do you concur?
I do have a soft spot for Dumbledore, though.
I thought you'd go Dumbledore.
Yeah, I do have a soft spot for him. But yeah, I think Gandalf's just got that element of cool, and like you say, he's
He's kick-ass. You know, he can fight.
Yeah.
He's not really a wizard,
Yeah,
is he?
you
He's
don't
just a
really see
fighter.
Dumbledore.
If in D&D terms, he's a first level wizard, 19th level fighter?
Basically, yeah. I'd like to say a Jura fighter.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, thank you very much for
Thank
coming
you
on to the
for
Critical
having
Twits.
us.
Thank you for having us.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're back here at Dragonmeet with Matthew from the podcast The Coriolis Effect. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm right, thank you very much for asking.
Have you had a good day so far?
We've had a very busy day. It started quite slowly and then we went a little bit mad at the end. So we didn't pace it particularly well. But yeah, we've done some interviews. How about yourself?
My fellow podcaster Dave has gone. He cried off about 5 o'clock. But we both arrived early on. We both ran a game of Coriolis as GMs, first of all, and then came and hung out around the podcasters for the rest of the afternoon.
Excellent. So what is the Coriolis Effect?
So the Coriolis Effect is a fan cast all about the Swedish game Coriolis, which is best described, well, not best described, but in the marketing, they describe it as Firefly mixed with Arabian Nights.
Yes, we've got a copy of that.
Excellent.
Rob,
I'm glad to hear.
Occasional guest on our podcast, and one of our players has got it. We haven't played it yet. Why should we play it?
Well, for a start, it's a beautiful system. I've fallen in love with it. It was Dave, actually, who persuaded me to back the Kickstarter when it came on. He'd been playing Mutant Year Zero in a group that I don't belong to.
Oh, we love Mutant.
Well, it's pretty much the same system as that, but tweaked for different things. Anyway, he was raving about Mutant Year Zero, and particularly about this one. And I kind of, as it was coming to the closing hours of the Kickstarter, I said, I suppose I ought to get this on PDF if you're going to run the game. And he said, no. I want you to run it. So I kickstarted him for the paper stuff as well. I don't know why. Why? Just because he says, and that's it. So it came to me entirely fresh. I knew nothing about it apart from its relation to Mutant Year Zero, which, as I say, was a game I'd never played, so I couldn't even say that was any good.
Yeah.
But reading through the rules, and it's one of the few books that I've ever been able to, RPG books, I should say. I've read lots of other books, but that and Feng Shui by Robin Laws are the only two role-playing game books that I've read from beginning to end. So
Excellent.
that I count as something in its favour, particularly given that to these guys, of course, it was written in Swedish first of all and only then translated. So it's a wonderfully elegant system. It's, if you know Mutant Year Zero, it's a little bit different from that in that rather than having, it's a dice pool system, sixes win, sixes are successes. Quite difficult to get sixes even with quite a lot of dice sometimes.
Yeah.
So
I've lost a lot of mutants that way. Yeah.
In Mutant Year Zero, it's all about actually degrading and dying, isn't it? Really,
Yes.
in a way.
Yeah.
Well, in Coriolis, you'll be pleased to know there are gods, and you can pray to the gods. And you pray to get a reroll. Nothing breaks if you get ones on your reroll or anything like that, like it does in Mutant Year Zero. All you have to do is give the GM a darkness point. But then those darkness points are special being a git points that the GM can then do things to you later in the game with. So all sorts of little things. Every character has to name a problem, so the GM can spend a darkness point to activate that problem if it seems
Okay.
appropriate. If you're beating all of his, beating all the guards that he's put around the place, then just spend some darkness points and more reinforcements come on. There are supernatural creatures because it's a bit Arabian Nightsy. All their powers are activated by darkness points. So essentially, you store up over the course of play a bunch of drama to happen towards the end of the scenario, and in that way, it kind of makes a really nice narrative story.
That sounds really interesting, actually. It reminds me slightly of Numenera with the kind of the GM giving plot and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I've not
and
played
sort of
Numenera.
The
but-
back and forth between
Yeah.
the players and what the GM can do. Is there? You probably haven't been doing this particularly long. It
No,
didn't
so
come out
we
that
only
long.
started this podcast in May, and it was a bit of a crazy idea. I can't remember quite how to do it. I remember texting and saying, I've just had a crazy idea. Why don't we do a podcast? And we thought we'd just put one out and see what people thought about it. And
Yeah.
I'm stunned by the apparent success. I thought we might get tens of people listening.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. I know it's kind of impolite to talk about your subscriber numbers, and of course, I don't even know whether these subscriber numbers that Feedburner tell me are anything like the number of people actually listening. But
Yeah.
We've got on Feedburner something like just under 300 subscribers,
Yeah.
which with the just the few months that we've been playing, we just put out episode 13. Unlucky for some. We'll
The
see how
last
that
one
goes.
you're done.
And we're doing roughly one every 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And so we're quite pleased with the appeal that people seem to have for it. We've decided to carry on and see how far we can
Is
take
it actual play or is it more discussion about
No,
the game?
mostly it's discussion. We have a little bit of a format we've fallen into. People quite like the fact that Dave and I just chat on it. So we chat a bit. We normally start off with a world of gaming session where we look a little bit beyond the confines of one role-playing game. Then normally we each have what we call an essay. So pre-recorded 5-minute long piece of pontification on the game. So it could be a new bit of background. I've got, and I'll give to you guys, in fact, we printed out one of our adventure locations called Samar's Hammam. And so I talked about that a little bit. And then we'd maybe have a discussion afterwards. And then normally we have a topic of discussion, which will be, again, a bit about a background or a feature of the rules when we're not entirely happy with them and we think, how could, what might be house rule? Then another segment, and that's often a talent of the month. So like your mutant powers, our characters in Coriolis get talents. So we think about what new talents might be like and how they might operate. And then generally, Dave or I we're actually running, well, Dave plays in my campaign, but he runs another campaign near where he lives, and we talk a little bit about how those campaigns are going on. We have, at one point, we happened to have our mic set up, and we said, maybe we should just record this game we're about to play. And so we put that out pretty much unedited as an actual play. It's mostly the sound of us eating Pringles.
Yeah, those sweet. I mean, we've talked to another podcast about crisps and what they carry.
And I have to say, the Pringles are way out. I think we're going to move to soup later on. So
Yeah. May I hardly not recommend fruit pastels because you get lots of wet chewing.
Right, okay, we won't do fruit pastels either. But again, I kind of struggle. I listen to actual plays, particularly when I want to learn a new game, but I kind of struggle to see the appeal, really, of actual plays. I can't get into... I mean, I know a lot of people, and a lot of the podcasters we've talked to today have been doing quite long campaigns, and I don't know, I kind of lose interest in them. But yeah, there seems to be a bit of a demand, not from everybody among our listeners. In fact, I've got a survey out at the moment, and I'm seeing a real strict division. There are some people who say, "Yay, more actual plays," and others saying, "Please don't do more actual plays." So I think we might have to set a second feed up for the actual plays. But I think we're encouraged to experiment with doing some more.
Brilliant.
We've got Simbaroom coming. I think I screwed up recording our last Coriolis, but if I haven't, then there'll be more actual plays coming out as well.
Brilliant. If anyone out there is looking to start their own podcast, what one tip would you give them to get them started? And you're in a really good place, actually, because you've only really just got...
I'm going to be really honest here. Just do it. There is... it is hard work, particularly if you have to do more episodes. But just do it and experiment and see how easy it is. So I'm not an entirely podcast neophyte. I was doing some writing and a bit of recording for the Signal podcast, which is all about Firefly.
Okay.
Actually, I have to say, one of the daddies of all the podcasts. It was out when they just invented podcasting, pretty much.
For those at home, Jamie is nodding furiously.
So I used to write for that. So I knew a little, but that was just all the technical bit of the recording and the editing was nothing that I'd been experienced with. So all I did was write little bits and then read them out or give them somebody else to read or read somebody else's little bit. And then I'd send my sound file off to somebody else and they'd magically make it sound great. And so that bit you have to learn. But Audacity, which I use, there are other sound editing apps out there, is a bit of a learning curve, but it doesn't take long to learn how to make things sound not shit. So yeah, my advice is get out there. I think one of the things that I took actually from the Signal podcast and brought into this is this idea of alternating between chat and essays.
Yeah.
So we try and break up the flow of the thing.
That would be an amazing idea for us to do, Jamie.
It's a good idea. Yeah, do that one. Listen to a couple of our episodes. They're all gold, so you can start at episode 1 if you like. Episode 3 with Samar's Hammam in it seems to be a particularly popular one when I look at the downloads. We might have got into the swing of it by then if anybody's interested. But yeah, I think if you're playing Coriolis, so your mate that wants to run it, he should be listening definitely.
Yeah. Rob, make a note.
Rob, make a note. As I say, I think we're just actually asking in the survey whether we should expand. We did an interview. We went over to Sweden and interviewed the guys that created Coriolis, both the original version of Coriolis, who now make Simbaroom, and the guys who took on the Coriolis franchise, Freya Lagan. It was great talking with them, and they've got all sorts of ideas for the future. They're releasing different versions of the game. So I'm thinking we might try and expand to cover more of the Freya Lagan games, and we'll see how that goes.
Brilliant. You have to come and have a chat with us at some point. That'd be really cool. I have a final question for you though. So Coriolis being a game set in space, I'd like you to imagine that you are taking part in a generation ship. You are flying off into space. You're never going to reach the destination, but your ancestors will. What skills will you bring to the generation ship, and what do you hope your ancestors will be doing by the time they get there?
Now, I have got to say this about Coriolis. There's a lovely, lovely story feature in the fluff of Coriolis, which is that a ship left Earth a generation ship left Earth to go all the way to Aldebaran. While they were on their way, humanity discovered portals that gave them a shortcut. So actually, part of the background of the game is the difference between what are called the first comers, who left Earth later but arrived at Aldebaran first, and the Zenithians who came on the ship Zenith. So I'm all about generation ships.
Excellent. I'm glad it's a relevant question.
And I think actually role playing is going to be an important skill for people to learn on the ship. You know, they're going to be stuck in this environment. They're going to have to imagine. I mean, no matter how big you build the ship, it's going to be a constrained environment. They've got to exercise their imaginations. They've got to be looking forward all the time, creating stories about how to survive in the alien world that they're going to colonise.
Excellent.
So role-playing is a game that we should all, or role-playing is a skill that we should all, I mean, all of us here, of course, are already experts in that, but we should be given large salaries on the generation ship to teach everybody else how to do it.
Excellent. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much for interviewing us. I'll definitely have to listen to more episodes of Critical Twits now.
Oh, you're our favourite already. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening to episode 91 of the Critical Twits Gaming Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like or even consider leaving a review, as they magically allow other people to find us, which means we can keep on making podcasts and gaming videos. And if you're new, please consider subscribing. We would love you forever. Thank you very much, and we'll see you again soon. If anyone out there is looking to start their own podcast, what one tip would you give them to get them started?
Just go for it.
Someone just go for it.
Just go for it. Go for it. Role play.
Just do it.
We're gonna be critical. We're gonna be analytic. We're gonna be critical.
Critical Twits.
Yeah.